Hey, we have Special Agent Sarah in snow country today. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Did it snow again?
It did. It is absolutely caked with snow.
Oh my
Edmonton
God.
is, you can't even see Edmonton. It's just white. There's
My
nothing.
God. Well, I saw Karen, a mutual friend of ours from blogging days, and she posted, I guess and I don't know if Karen, I don't think she listens to the podcast, but she could be surprised right now if she did. Um, that I saw a photo of hers on social media of I'm just covered in snow. And I was like, what? It's almost April. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. We get this every March, though. There's just
Yeah.
this huge,
Yeah.
huge blizzard, total
Yeah.
whiteout.
Well, it's
So,
been psycho weather here too. Right now it's so warm out, it's fantastic. But last week it was snowing in a blizzard, and then last night there was a crazy rainstorm. I mean, it's just all over the place. I guess that's March. That's the weather for this month. I think I lost you. All right, we're back. A little emergency there. Maybe it was the weather. Um,
let's go.
yeah. I know you've been super busy, so I really appreciate you being able to come on. We're going to talk about Stephen Soderberg's movie Black Bag, which we both saw last week. And then we're going to talk about one of his other movies, or we can talk about any movie you want of his, if you like, but Presents. And then we're going to talk about Oprah being discussed on the podcast, a very popular, long-running podcast called Behind the Bastards. So I'm pretty looking forward to that. When I
Yeah.
reached out to you, you were like, "Oh, I follow them," so that was good. And talking about Oprah in a not so beautiful light is very interesting.
You know what? When I was blogging with
Yeah.
Swallowing the Camel, I mentioned Oprah so many times. I never devoted a whole series or an
Mm,
entire blog post to her, but she just got sucked into so many different like literary hoaxes and
hmm
scam artists that
hmm
yeah, she showed up a lot. She
hmm
was name dropped a lot on
Yeah.
podcasts.
Yeah. So they did we might as well just carry on with this. They did a six-part. I watched all six parts. I don't know about you. I mean,
Yeah,
watched slash listened because I
yeah.
watched it on YouTube and they have video. If I was more organized, we would do that too. I just I just don't want to wear full makeup every time we do a podcast.
Yeah, no, same.
Or
I'm wearing
clean.
overalls right now, so let's not.
I know exactly. I almost didn't have my pajama pants on. I do have a pair of shorts on right now. Just but I was like, "Oh, I'm so uncomfortable. What am I going to wear for this podcast?" Right? So yes, it's nice to be in our gym jams and just our intellects.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly. We bring our brains
Womano,
to
Womano, Womano. Yes. Okay, so it was a long journey, that podcast. It probably took me about 2 weeks to listen to it. And I mean, I listened to three right away. And overall, I don't think she was too much of a bastard. So the premise
no.
of the podcast is that they talk about like I just had on today the most evil corporation in the world. So they'll just talk, and it was the East India Corporation, not unlike something like the Dutch investment, all those ones that were in the 18th century, the Hudson Bay Company. I mean, does anyone dare wear a Hudson Bay coat anymore? Yeah, I
Not in
mean,
public.
not in public. It's colonizer fashion. Yeah, so they basically, I guess they compile from things they find on the internet and Wikipedia and everything. And sometimes he reads directly from it. You can tell that
Yeah,
but like my favorite murder, it's quite enjoyable because he's a lively person and he's on the right side of history.
yeah,
And his co-hosts he has different co-hosts. They're also very entertaining.
they are. They've done some great shows. They usually go with very traditional villains. You know, they'll talk about Caesar, they'll talk about Hitler, or they'll talk about a mega corporation or whatever. But
Right.
sometimes they really surprise me. Like last summer, they did an entire six-part series on Vince McMahon, which was absolutely fascinating.
Well, I'm gonna have to listen to that. I've
It's
got it.
so good.
Wow, that is interesting because we actually are going to maybe next week record a wrestling episode with
Excellent.
Dante
Yes.
K
This
and
is
Kachima. So yeah, I've got two people who are wrestling fans. So if I bring that, that could be my contribution.
absolutely. It
Um,
is so informative. It goes back through the basically the prehistory of wrestling. and takes you
Interesting.
all the way through Vince McMahon's rise, and some would argue his fall.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes. Yes. Do,
really
do they
fascinating.
do they do they have fans of anything? I guess because they're always talking about the bad guys, they're not going to talk about what they love. But do they ever talk
No,
about what they love? No.
not so much.
No. No. And I mean, they used to be anarchists and protesters or whatnot. I think he's been clear about that in his past. So yeah, he's on the right side of history. And so yeah, the Oprah thing. So it starts out where they go right through her childhood and they kind of question some of her own narrative.
They do. They go all the way. I didn't realize they were going to go that far back. I thought
I
they would
know.
probably start out with her early days in broadcasting, but
Yeah,
no, they go back to birth,
the
basically. They're
birth.
talking about
And they
higher life.
brought, yeah, it was a little rough because he is it what's his name again? Andrew Bird? No, I've got it wrong. That's a musician. I forgot. Oh, Robert Evans. His name's Robert
Yes.
Evans, the main host.
Yeah.
And he said he happened to be in a small town, I think in the same state as her. If it wasn't that, but it was a small town. And then it was really funny. I mean, I did laugh because sometimes they say things, and I'm like, come on, that's kind of hard. He goes, this town of 6,000. That's not a small town. I'm like, dude, that's an extremely small town. I
Yeah,
Katie
there
Lang
was
was
kind of some competition over what's the smaller
I know.
community.
Yeah, Katie Lang was in a town of 600. That is extremely small. But 6,000 is brutally, you really would know most people, at least
However.
familiar. So, they picked a few things about her memoirs, right? They did try to pick apart, she said this, but the reality is that. But it wasn't that far off. And I guess I don't lose a lot of sleep over a little artistic license.
No, I mean, she did kind of give the impression, she has given the impression over the years that she kind of grew up in grinding poverty,
Correct.
like absolutely dirt poor.
Correct.
And the part that did make me laugh, I have to admit, was when she was telling people that the only toy plaything she had growing up was a corn husk doll.
Yes, yes, that did make me laugh
It
too.
wasn't even really a toy, it was just a corn husk, made it look like a doll.
I
But
know.
it
I
turned out that she did have a lot of playthings, but they weren't hers. They were given to her by her mother. Was it her mother's employer or
think you're right.
her grandmother's employer?
Those are hand-me-down toys.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know what? It's funny because on the news this morning, WGN, somebody was saying that one of the other journalists brought her, he was getting rid of his junk or whatever, right? And he brought these, and it wasn't like a couple of things. He brought her 6 boxes of toys. And she was like, "What?" But when she got home, her kids were so happy. And I mean,
Mhm.
they're well off. They're journalists. They're like on a TV show every morning. They're not poor. They don't need to recycle. I thought it was cool they were recycling. And that brings me to the part which is really sad about Oprah. First of all, full disclosure, I probably watched every episode. I was really, really into Oprah. I loved her, but I watched a lot of talk shows in the
Yeah.
daytime, usually depending on what my hours of work, if I was bartending or stay-at-home mom or something. There was Jenny Jones, Sally Jesse Raphael, Phil Donahue, who just passed away, and Oprah came along, and there was a kind of an edge to her. However, she is extremely conservative. I mean, all those shows were run by very conservative personalities, and in a way, that's their downfall. She is a spokesperson for the capitalist system. In so many ways, her show celebrated so many things capitalistic. I didn't just I didn't really like lose sleep over it. I was like, I'm not going to go out and buy every product she has on her show. I did enjoy my favorite things where all this stuff was given away. There was a kind of a casino uh, lottery feeling to the whole thing that was kind of enjoyable. But I didn't go and get her stuff. Um, so I am a big fan, but I was critical of her sometimes. Sometimes she wasn't a very good interviewer, but she did do good. And I do believe that she did want to be a good person. I think she still is a good person, but it brings up the idea of unexpected consequences because their best part of their show was about that. And in the weird way that would you ever have predicted that Oprah's TV show would have so much to do with what we're looking at in culture right now?
Never.
Never.
Um,
Never. So can you speak to that a little bit?
I definitely can. I think she did have, I wouldn't say that she had an edge. I think she actually had a softness that she brought in.
Yeah, I meant
Um,
edge that she would be not afraid to talk about sex or racism. I should have
yeah.
been clear on that. She wasn't afraid to talk about very important topics. Let me put it that way. Not an edge. She was a
That's
soft heart. Yes.
very much so. She
Yeah.
always had the kindly but slightly kooky aunt vibe. Like,
Yes.
the aunt who sort of believes in a little bit of everything and like
Yes.
sends you links to crazy new age books and stuff.
Hmm.
But she definitely had this softness and approachability. And
Hmm.
even her sets reflect that. They were these super non-threatening pastel sets.
You're
They
right.
looked like they did look like your auntie's living room. Everything was just
Sarah, what a
so,
great observation.
yeah, no, they were. And the other sets were not like that. Like Donahue, I don't think he ever changed sets over the years.
It was all,
His was a,
I think it was blues and masculine, maybe. I don't know.
yeah, it
Cold,
looked like
hard
a typical
lines. Yeah.
stuff. But Oprah had that soft,
Mhm.
feminine, like approachable
Wow,
vibe.
astute observation. Yeah.
But then she would bring in things that were kind of, and I want to get into kind of the idea of trauma culture
Hmm.
because I think that Oprah was a huge proponent of that. I
Hmm.
think she really got us addicted to trauma memoir,
Hmm.
um, literature that deals with trauma, and not always in the most healing way either. A lot of it is unresolved trauma, and so you're just putting it out there into the world and you're absorbing it, but you're not doing anything with it.
Mm.
I think she wanted people to do something with it and use it as a building block to something better and improving their lives. But did we really? That's a question that's still kind of open, I think.
Yeah, very
Did it?
interesting.
Yeah.
There's that line
But I,
in Deadpool, millennial trauma bragging. I don't know if you saw Deadpool. It's like this, millennial trauma bragging. It was one of the best lines in the movie. Yeah, and we have that
we
culture now.
yeah, we are a generation of trauma dumpers and people who just kind of, we do wallow a little bit in our trauma.
Hmm.
There's a really interesting book called Popular Trauma Culture. It's by Anne Rath with
Hmm.
Rutgers University Press. It came out quite a few years ago, but she gets into Oprah quite a lot, and she refers to some of Oprah's topics as trauma quiche. This idea that you're taking something like profoundly unsettling and something that affects, millions of people, and you're turning it into popular entertainment. You're turning it into something that has mass appeal. And does that really work?
Right.
I
Oh my
was wondering, are
God,
we
that's
really going to do?
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean that was part of like there was a feeling of catharsis in some of her shows. Um, there's some shows that stand out to me in a very positive way, most of them positive. And one was though, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, where she had this he was in law enforcement and he came out and he said women should trust their intuition. And it was
Mhm.
ahead of the fact that now we accept intuition as being, we know something, we just don't know why we know it. But he said, if you feel creepy, if you feel something's out there, take action right away. He also said, never go to the second location.
Yes, I do remember this fellow. Yeah.
Yeah,
He
and
was
he
a,
said, die on the street outside their car because you have a
yeah,
better chance at that than when they take you to the woods or the back road or something, or
yeah.
conk you on the head. Let them kill you on the street. And it was just like so mind blowing, and it was so supportive of how we joke about female intuition and everything, but his whole thing was that unconsciously you are seeing something, but you can't see what you're seeing. You're not like if your eyes are working faster than your brain to catch up at some danger you saw a shadow or something. So things like that were always amazing. And obviously she had some pretty good pop culture guests and things like that. But to have sometimes I'd be like, what is she going to talk about now? And so there was an element of spectacle.
Yes, there was. And
Yeah,
you know me, I'm so into the satanic panic,
I
into
know.
examining why did this happen? Why did we do this? And
Hmm.
Oprah was a huge, huge contributor to that, unfortunately. She was one of the very first, I think she actually scooped Geraldo with his famous devil worship primetime
Hmm.
special.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think she had an episode before he did.
Hmm.
And hers was extremely disturbing because she had a guest on her show, a middle-aged woman named Rachel, who has since come out as a woman named Vicky Poland.
Oh.
And she was a resident of, I believe, New York. And on the show, and you could tell that Oprah wasn't buying into this, and
Oh.
she caveats and stuff. But Vicky Poland, as Rachel, went on the show and claimed that she was part of a satanic cult that was actually Jewish,
Hmm.
and it was her family. So
Oh,
she had
geez.
been
I
born
do
into
remember that one too. Yeah.
yes, and they
That,
sacrificed babies and they did all the usual
yeah.
satanic panic stuff, right?
Yeah.
And Oprah was very careful to say to her audience, I don't know any Jews who do this. I don't think this is a typical Jewish thing.
Hmm.
But of course, it put it out there, and it's still being exploited by a lot of people as evidence of basically the blood libel, right?
Right.
It flirted with blood libel. And it turned out years later, Vicki Poland set up this organization called the Awareness Center, where she warned about um, child abuse within Judaism, which is fine. I mean,
Yeah.
someone has to do that.
Yes.
Every religious organization, every religion in the world has its issues with this, right?
Yes.
But Vicky Poland's story was definitely exploited by the wrong people.
Yeah.
And years later, she said that her family, the reason it was satanic was because her family was, and I don't know how to pronounce this, Sabbatean.
Yep. I think you got
Yeah,
that. Yep.
yeah. So followers of,
Interesting.
yeah, so followers of like a 17th century Jewish
Yeah.
sect,
Yeah.
Messianic sect.
Yeah.
And this was an offshoot of it known as Frankism, which didn't really exist beyond the 19th century, I think.
Hmm.
It's still out there. And actually, Candace Owens, a Black
Oh,
conservative
she is.
commentator.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? Unfortunately, most of us probably know who she is.
Hmm.
She was actually fired from Ben Shapiro's media company, The Wire or whatever it's called, because she put out the same thing that Rachel did on the Oprah Winfrey Show back in 1989. She said, we really have to watch out for these Sabbatean Satanists because they sacrifice children every year. So she was more directly linking it to the blood libel, and she was fired, and
Hmm.
that's where we are today. It never
Yeah.
really went away.
Well, there's a side of this that I guess I would look at it as almost like we should look at it a bit more symbolically than literally, because the truth is that there are adults that take advantage of children. And there are groups of people who have taken advantage of children. There is sex trafficking and there is human trafficking. Um, but we jump to conclusions. And her show with the Saints of Latter-day, kept, the Mormon, the families where they took all the kids away from the mothers. I think she went to their site and kind of supported having the kids put with their parents or took the side of these poor mothers, regardless of what may or may not have happened, that you don't just kind of run in there and tear these kids away, especially
Right.
and again, we've got Hollywood. We do know. So the Bastards, behind the Bastards, they were a little bit like, come on, she had these teenagers on, and they said they had all these, they were telling these adults all the things they did. Well, the thing is, teenagers do stuff. Whether it was that particular sexual act, who cares? The point of the story was connect with your kids, be able to talk to them about these things. Yeah, don't get bogged down in joking about or being too serious about. The point is that kids do experiment, and
And I think
teenagers
that,
definitely experiment.
and that could be the good part of what Oprah did in the 80s. She did stoke a lot of panic and
Hmm.
fears
Yes,
about weren't happening, like rainbow parties, probably not.
that's it.
The Behind
Rainbow
the
parties.
Bastards crew had a lot of fun with that
Yeah.
because nobody was doing that. I mean, a lot of teenagers would wish they were, but not so much. So yeah, but if she got parents to open up to their kids and just sit down with them and say, what are you doing?
Hmm.
Go
Hmm.
to parties.
Hmm. Hmm.
Are you being safe? Are you
Are
are
their
you doing
parents home when you're
usual?
there? Also, are your parents home when you're there? Because the biggest thing is that sometimes kids are having parties when there's nobody around. And they definitely tell you that, oh no, so and so has permission to go. My friend has permission to stay till midnight. You actually have to call other parents and find out what's going on. It's not nice. You feel like a nerd. Oh, and speaking of nerds, in a weird way, Oprah is kind of like a bookie geek. Yeah, and I say
Yeah.
that with love. I say that with love. I don't mean it as an insult. That to me is a compliment. So that's the energy where you're like, okay, I just have to remember, yeah, you're like she is your aunt and your cousin or something, and she she's into all this stuff, but she wasn't reading like William Burroughs, When she,
No.
she's reading, and I read a lot of the books that were on her reading list. And
Oh,
I Yeah, and I participated on her in her book club. And I would post. It was not very in depth though. And a few of us who are on book clubs online, we were like, yeah, they checked out the Oprah book to listen to when Cormac was on her show to see what the discussion was like. And it was very, I mean, everyone's busy doing laundry and raising their kids. They don't have time to sit on the computer and delve into Hegel and Nietzsche and event level extinction in the road. They read the book. That's pretty damn good.
to be completely fair, yeah, she did introduce some pretty fine literature and some unknown authors to the world.
Yes, yes.
That's, I give her credit there. Where I have take issue with Oprah is that unfortunately, she and other people, to be fair, not just her, but a lot of media people, reviewers, bought into some really bizarre media hoaxes.
Yeah.
Um, Fake Holocaust memoirs. The most outrageous one, and this was one that I blogged about around 2011-ish, maybe. And there's a fantastic Netflix documentary about this too. But there was a woman named calling herself Misha Di Fonseca,
Hmm.
who claimed that she had fled from the Nazis when she was a very young girl, like about 4 years old, and was raised by wolves in the
I saw,
forest.
yep, I remember that one. Yep.
And then, of course, it came out a few years later that no, not no. She
You know,
wasn't actually Jewish, and no, she was not raised by
yeah,
wolves.
that one's sad. I mean, it's not a good hoax. It's terrible, and it is a hoax. It was to get money, I'm sure, but it's also a sad one. I feel like mixed. Whereas James Frey, that one
Yeah.
was much more entertaining in a way because when he was first on the show, he had an air of not being quite right. And I took it as some people who have addiction, they have personality disorders. So I took it as that. And I guess it probably turns out that's exactly what did happen. I think he was addicted and maybe he went to jail for 2 days. I think it was a little bit like Go Ask Alice, which was a book when I was a kid, that everybody read. And later, if you look at it, there's no kid on earth that writes like that. It was definitely a hoax. It was an adult pretending to be a kid. And James Frey, I put out there like that. It was supposed to scare people off of drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a fantastic book, just as a side note, there's a fantastic book called Unmasked Alice
Oh,
that was
interesting.
written by a DJ down in the States who, for whatever reason, was fascinated by the book and
Yeah.
wanted to get to the real story behind it.
Oh,
Beatrice Sparks was the woman who wrote it, but it was supposed to be, the doc as told to Beatrice Sparks by the real Alice, right?
right, right, right.
And he digs very, very deeply. He does a super deep dive into what really happened with that book.
Oh
It's so
my God.
good.
What really happened?
She made it up, more or less.
Okay,
She did
yeah,
meet a
yeah,
girl. Yeah,
yeah.
not real.
Was there any girl at all? No.
Maybe she might have
Okay.
briefly met a girl at a summer camp.
I call that literature. Just,
It
I
basically
mean, we have pseudo mockumentaries. It might have been, how would you wouldn't you call that literary fiction now? No, what would there is a name for it now. Maybe? But yeah, it was sold as a
autobiographical
mem.
fiction.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and I mean, certainly it must have sold jillions of copies because I just know everybody, and I don't mean just me, I mean, for years, people read that book. For
Yes,
years.
it's
I
still
think
in print.
there's probably a movie too. I think there was a
I'm
made
sure
for
there
TV
is.
movie. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And also, then there's some funny side stories with some of the people. Um, at one point, she has this book on about abundance. So everybody, people were getting this book. My daughter wanted the book. We looked at abundance. We were practicing to be grateful. Okay, enjoy. See, you have so much in your life already. See, Sarah, you have a lamp behind you. I have a toaster. We're not suffering. Let's be abundant. Simple. I might have been called Simple Abundance. You're supposed to have an
I
abundant
think I
diary.
think it was. And you know what? I'm going to confess. When I was a teenager, I think I had a copy of the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, I gave it to my daughter at Christmas or something like that, right? And I think it did appeal to young people a lot. And then it turns out that she completely went bankrupt and had an unusual relationship with somebody, and she just lost everything. I think she's back. I think she's back, but I haven't gone and looked that up. But it was weird because my family were like, "Wow, isn't that weird that all that happened?" Then she got so rich after being a book about being humble, and then
Yeah, more than simply
she
abundant.
spent it all or something, yeah, or got into debt or overspent.
Her name, if I remember correctly, I got rid of the book years ago, but
Mhm.
Sarah Brethnock, I believe was her
I
name.
believe that is her name. Yeah, well done. Yeah, now that you say it, I recognize that name.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is so interesting. I know if you look deeply into any Oprah guest, you're gonna just fall down so many rabbit holes. I mean, they are
Isn't
really
that
interesting.
interesting? It is interesting. And I think that's what these guys on Behind the Bastards were kind of getting into, that it's almost her earnestness that
Mhm.
she almost didn't read the people. She did like their story. I mean, I guess at first Dr. Phil wasn't completely um repulsive. He came on the show.
No.
He had some nice things to say. He seems to be a case of fundamentalism and
Mhm.
paranoia now and fame. Creating a terrible brew, a
When he
toxic.
when he first came on the scene, when Oprah first introduced him to the world, he was a very down to earth kind of guy.
Definitely, he was
I
definitely
think I think the worst you could have said about him at that time was that he was not really practicing any sort of unconditional positive regard with his patients because he would have
oh
people on the air and he would kind of say, "You're screwing up."
yeah, yeah, that's true, that's true, which that was that kind of down home straight shooting from the hip talk that he was bringing, right? Like, come on, use some common sense, which is not true. There's no common sense. There's no such thing, but use just stop doing it, whatever the behavior was, stop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he was more like a lecturer. He would bring people on to kind of school them, you
so
know?
true. So true. Oh God, it would have been horrible to be. I was always afraid, like, oh, if I went to the Oprah show, then what if it turned out that it was like you're gonna be there with Dr. Phil or something? Although I don't know why I would be or why my family would do that, but you know what I mean. Um, yeah, so Dr. Phil, and then he's kind of part of this populist movement in America. And I wonder how Oprah feels about that.
And they kind of got into that on Behind the Bastards. Like, does Oprah ever stop to contemplate the monsters that she has loosed on the world?
Correct. And Dr.
Dr.
Oz being one of them.
Oz. Yep.
Dr.
And
Oz
they
being one
talked
of
a
them.
lot about those are the most influential
Yes, yes.
examples, I would say, were Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz, but the doctors. But
Hmm.
she also introduced or popularized James Ray, who was kind of a new
Correct.
age leader.
Yes.
And he's infamous for holding, he's not indigenous in any way, as far as I understand, but he was hosting very large scale sweat lodges
Hmm.
and was
Hmm.
commercializing them, charging for them, which I don't think you're supposed to do.
No.
And he ended up, yeah, I don't recall the exact
Oh
circumstances, but
yeah,
he was
no,
basically
he
keeping
basically
people.
fried some people to death. He burnt
Yep,
them, like suffocated them with the smoke or lack of air and heat. The heat exhaustion, I suppose. Um,
I think it was
Yeah, I
exhaustion.
did see some news. I watched some documentaries on it. And it's cultural appropriation. It's not his. And I mean, the delicate part about where that line is when it's a religious event, I don't even know if indigenous people, I think there's even restrictions among indigenous people about the use of a sweat lodge, you know? And that's why it's probably ritual based and small. Yeah. So yeah,
Right.
that's a very interesting story about that. And that's not her fault. There's
No.
it's
No.
not her fault if she had a crime. It's that she didn't realize what malignant capitalism is. And nobody does. And the unexpected consequences, well, that's not fair that nobody does. Some of us do know. And certainly we're able to go and find the way before you decide to make a charter school, because they were talking about a charter school and the backfires on that. And then it makes the public school system even worse. Instead of why not aim that money in some kind of fundraising towards a public school? I mean, the Behind the Bastards didn't say to do that, but they were like the charters, they were talking about the charter school system. And, so her angel network, this is what, when we want to do good, sometimes, you know, there's no good deed goes unpunished. And, these backfires. And her school in Africa had issues. And the thing is, when you have all this money, it's very difficult. Not everyone's Oprah. Oprah got the money and she's didn't turn into a creep. She's not abusing anyone that we know of or anything. She lives, her life. Why do you think she quit her job and stopped doing the TV show?
I kind of wondered about, but I think she had done it for so many years. It ran from, I think, I looked it up earlier, 86 to 2010 or 2011.
A long time. It's a
And
long time.
then that's a long time to be in the national spotlight and to be on TV every single day.
And doing
Uh,
one project. One, it's not like she could
right.
do more things. So I thought maybe she quit because she did end up doing a network and doing other things. And maybe she just wanted to be young enough to enjoy her life.
I
You know,
would think so.
yeah, and hang out with
Simple enough.
her partner and her friends and enjoy nature. I mean, her Super Soul Sunday was a very nice show. I don't know if she's still making them, but it was a pretty nice show. Um, she had some of the world's most well-known spiritual leaders and wisdom thinkers, etc. Yeah, so I wonder, she probably wouldn't even have a clue that there was a show Behind the Bastards. Again, that wouldn't be on her radar. But and the other thing is, as much as I love Obama, and I do, but he also is part of the capitalist system. So you think of all the good that she did, but it's that belief that this kind of financial, um, economic structure can do good. That it isn't her fault. But it would have been really super cool if someone as cool as Oprah could be, had that education of, I mean, what does she think about the Teslas being on fire right now? I'd love to know.
I would too. I'd be quite curious.
What does she
She
think
did.
of Trump?
She certainly was a force for capitalism. I mean,
Yeah.
not just with her marketing, the
Hmm.
various products. I
Hmm.
can't remember what she called the gifts, but giving away the Pontiacs and
Yes,
doing
right.
all these things that were very much just advertising. It's just come on.
Advertising. And, she did want, it was all for teachers. A lot of people don't realize that those cars were for teachers that were driving like beaters and were really in rough shape. She got her people to do research and find these teachers who really needed a car. And I guess she got Pontiac. She should have paid for the taxes out of
Yeah.
the show. Again, not knowing how far do I take this?
Right.
So I'm going to ask this person, this person, this person about charter schools. Go and find a revolutionary. Go and find a protester.
Yeah.
What did you think after Wall Street? Because her show was still on TV with Occupy Wall Street.
Mhm.
We don't know what she thought about it.
No, we don't. And the thing is that Oprah, if she could, if you would want to accuse her of anything, this is where she's not a bastard, really. I don't
No,
think
no, she's
they
not a
put that on
bastard.
the show. But I think where her fatal flaw would be in just not having a lot of foresight
Mm-hmm.
and not examining situations really closely to see how they might develop.
Yeah.
And a really good example of that is when she did a couple of shows on John of God, a faith healer down in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
She was really impressed by stories of healing and she found that part of it inspiring. But
Mm-hmm.
she didn't stop to think that A, most Brazilian faith healers are con artists and they're not doing anything. They're not removing tumors or anything like that. They're just
Mm-hmm.
pretending to be right. It's a scam. Andy Kaufman learned that the hard way. I think he went down to see a faith
Yeah.
healer in America. And was,
Yeah.
yeah, it did
Right.
not work out.
No. No, it did not.
Um, but she didn't stop to think that a man with so much clout and so many followers and such tremendous influence over so many people all over the world might tend to abuse that. And
Mm-hmm.
just a few years after she interviewed him for the final time, yes, he was arrested on hundreds of charges of sexual abuse of his followers.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
had been sexually exploiting people in Brazil for many, many years.
Mm-hmm. And I
And he,
think, yeah, and this is where, and in a way, the idea of unexpected consequences is a lesson for all of us. that we really do not we're not able to just wake up one day and make a decision and do something. And how do you begin to research that? How do you begin to ask? And who has the time and the resources to set up a kind of a talking points? If you're an entrepreneur, and I suppose you've got a baseline of money, you can investigate, oh, well, what's the best way to make this and have it. And people do that. They find out what's the best way to employ people and do um, green building, right?
Mhm.
Environmentally conscious, environmental justice. And I mean, it would have been interesting if Oprah had stayed on the air, if she ever would have had environmental justice people on, if she would have moved into that realm. And I mean, certainly it's almost an oversight that she didn't do that on her network. Have something
I
like an avant-garde culture jammers program of
right.
some kind?
She definitely had the resources, and I think this is what has irked me about her over the years, if anything, that, I can't really blame her for falling for some of these things,
Hmm.
but she can afford to hire an absolute army of fact checkers,
Hmm.
researchers,
Hmm.
activists, people who are boots on the ground and know exactly what's going on.
Hmm. Yeah.
You could do it.
Yeah.
She obviously didn't at
Yeah.
times, but
And then she would have some more successful shows. I remember she got her staff to be vegan or vegan for like 2 weeks or something, a week or two. And they went through the food and it was really kind of fun. And that was such an interesting that was the kind of potential you could have on that. And I mean, some people said they were going to stay on it for the rest of their life, her staff. They weren't going to stop. They felt so much better. So there was some interesting things like that she could have branched into.
oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
she was on
There's
the brink of it, really.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
She drew people into so many things. Unfortunately, some of them were just really, again, not thinking ahead to the
Right.
repercussions. Like
Right.
The Secret was probably one of
Oh
the
God,
worst.
yeah. Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
new age idea that the law of attraction can work in your life. Whatever you think, you draw to you. But you can't think in the negative. You can't think, I don't want a disaster to befall me. I don't want to go into debt. You can't think that because then it will draw it to you as
Right.
well.
Right. No, it is.
It's just very, very baffling
And
philosophy.
it's also a form of cultural appropriation too, because what it is magic without ritual. Promising
Mm.
magic with ritual. Magic only happens within ritual. And we could leave that for another topic. But if you do believe that you're going to do a spiritual thing and they're talking about a spiritual practice and almost like a koan from Buddhism. Koans don't make sense. What they do is they trigger your mind to expand, and you can find a double bind in a way that a double bind can exist. And so the secret is like that, but it's not coming from the people who have researched it for 10,000 years. It's coming from someone, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. They took a little idea, same as his sweat lodge. They took a little bit of that idea without really being practitioners and dedicating 10, 15 years of their lives to it. I mean, it's not fun nobody goes into Buddhism and it's an easy ride. You go because you don't know where else to go. No one walks into a temple happy. You go into it if you didn't grow up in it and you're going to go check it out, you're at rock bottom. Usually, over all the years I've been in Buddhism, when somebody comes in that's outside of it, they're usually really desperate. And so then they get inspired. Let's say someone gets inspired and then they go write a book. No. You got to have the mileage behind you. Um,
I just
and
find
that
there's
is
a big
also part of what we're seeing. I'm so sorry, Sarah, but I read a fantastic book last year by a writer I really admire, Arthur V. Lewis, and he wrote American Gnostic, and he gives many examples of what's going on, and it is sort of related to Oprah in a weird way. And one of them is that Sam Harris has a meditation app. I don't want to, you want to meditate. It's a calming app. I get those things. But they are taking it again from a tradition where there's 10,000 years of research and they're not doing the work. You could go to a spiritual practice and be enlightened in 1 second. That's true. But part of it is also just the daily grind of practicing. And
this
I mean that
raises
with love.
it's fascinating because it raises the question, was Oprah offering just quick fixes for deep spiritual and emotional problems?
Well, it's a great question. It's a great question. I believe she walked the walk. but I don't know if it transferred on TV. I don't know if it transmitted on TV that, when she had Eckhart Tolle, God, poor Stag, even I made him do Eckhart Tolle came on and they did this workshop. I think it was like 7 weeks or something, right? Stag's like, why have I married this woman? Like, what's Eckhart Tolle talking about the power of now? That is one of her accomplishments. Eckhart Tolle, that was a great workshop. I don't know how people felt about taking it. I know one woman called and she said, I have a 3-year-old. I live in New Jersey and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. He goes, that is your path. It's true. It's true.
Do
I don't
you
know
think
what
very many people made it through the entire 7 weeks?
I don't know, but Stag and I did. I can't remember how many lessons there were, right? And it was one of the biggest before we had Zoom. It was like a Zoom program that she had. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Um, that was well before, the technology we have now. To have that live streaming webinar or whatever it was. Yeah, so there have been some people, probably more that were good than that were bad on her show. I would say overall.
To
Um,
be fair, that's probably true because she
yeah,
had so many guests over the years. I don't know how many, but when you run from 86 to 2011 and then the interviews she's done beyond that,
hours,
yeah.
hours, hours, hours. Yeah, yeah, hundreds. Yeah. So in this book, he has an argument in American Gnosis that what we're seeing, he talks about how the red pill has been co-opted by the fundamentalists and right wing, and of course, the Matrix. They made a fourth movie trying to fight that. They still couldn't because once they co-opted it's in the right wing um, dialogue now, right? And that a little bit of an awakening has happened with people. That there's several different types of awakening. So one is a political awakening. So someone wakes up and they realize, oh my God, these politicians are bullshitters. Like maybe before they believed in the American system, but now they're like, oh, so it's all bullshit. Thank God we have Trump, and I can trust these new leaders that are they're being honest with me. They speak the truth. They're down to earth, right? It's a very interesting book. I would recommend you read it. And that he read all the websites so that we don't have to. Like he read all the ugly websites, and he has a collection of some of their memes on his website too. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, but the Sam Harris thing where you can do meditation, right? Without an instructor, without practicing. I mean, meditation isn't for everybody and it is pretty hard. You really maybe want to start with 1 minute, not an hour. I don't know how long Sam Harris's is. And I do know some people that use it and they love it. But
And Oprah was a little guilty of a lot of that.
yes, yes,
Because she would bring out fad diets. Like she introduced several diets and food plans on her show
definitely.
and exercise.
Definitely.
She
Definitely.
infamously went on a starvation diet where she did slim down quite a bit and then hauled a child's wagon full of
Oh,
fat
yeah.
to represent all the weight
I didn't
she
even know what to make of that, to be honest with you. I was like, I don't feel like I was old enough to kind of wonder what does this mean? You know? I mean, I did think about it, but I was like, I don't know. Is this what we do? When I was younger, I took entertainment and shows. I took it pretty literally. Like, okay,
Mhm.
they're doing this. This is what I'm supposed to watch almost, you know?
Mhm. I think it did introduce a lot of young people, girls especially, to the idea that you're supposed to be fighting the good fight with your weight. You're supposed to be struggling and battling and trying everything
Yeah.
instead of, and I think now Oprah has relaxed into this self-acceptance that
Well,
if I'm right about that, I'm so happy for her.
I
But
hope
she,
so
for so
too.
many years, taught herself.
Possibly Ozempic is in her life too. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't know where
I
she's
don't.
at today.
Right,
It
right. We
seems
don't
like
know.
she relaxed, but I don't
Yeah. But I think she
know.
does. I would say that she is a person who is very well aware that she wants peace of mind.
Yes.
Happiness has nothing on peace of mind.
Yeah. And she
Happiness is,
definitely,
yeah,
she is, I would say she is a low-level seeker. She's not
definitely.
someone who's going to go up into the mountains and meditate or anything,
Yeah.
but she's one of those people who's always looking and always searching.
Yeah, and I think it's better to be around people. I don't know about the mountain thing. I think she is a helper, she's a maven, she's an influencer. I mean, she's really one of the original influencers. I guess we should look at it that way. The other thing I was thinking about, her and Martha Stewart had magazines. And I
Mhm.
remember thinking they were always on the cover, made Stag nuts, right? Why did she have to be on the cover every month? And I said, well, apparently they studied it and people wanted her on the cover. It's why it sells. But I used to think, how do you do a photo shoot every month like that? I just remember thinking that must be exhausting. And now that was like the original selfie on social media,
Yes,
right? Now that's just normal for a famous person to be on posing on their camera on their Instagram page.
it is. I do think she was one of the first people to really bank on her own image.
Hmm. Hmm.
Certainly, you didn't see Sally Jesse Raphael or Donahue doing
No,
that, or
no.
even Ricky Lake. No, it was mostly Oprah.
Yeah,
She
it really
knew the
was.
power of her image.
She really did. And like you said, there was that warm, soft side. I mean, I definitely felt, and she would tear up. It was sincere, you know. You
Mhm.
could feel it through the TV. So there was something, listen, I didn't know what I was going to do when her show canceled. I was like, I remember Andy Cohen goes, he said, Oprah's retiring. Who's going to check me, boo? It's like, wow, what are we going to do for guidance now?
Well, it was such a transition because I grew up with Oprah. I mean,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
she came on before I got home from school, but I would always catch the last few
The la
minutes, and then
the
summer I
four
would watch
o'clock. Yeah, I think on the West Coast it was at 4. I remember being when I got to Chicago, it was on at 10 in the morning. I was like, what? This is messing with my mind.
her morning show now. I can't handle it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she was such a
Thank God
part
for
of.
DVR.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, so I thought they did a pretty good job. And there's definitely something to be said about many of the guests, and you've recalled most of them that they go in depth about, and that they're unleashed into this persona of populism, and we're dealing with it now. I
It's
really can't imagine
fascinating.
how she feels about it.
I don't either. But you know what's interesting is that I this is hard to admit, but I was not familiar with Obama before Oprah mentioned him.
Ah, interesting. That's cool. No, that's
She
very
said that he
cool.
was her
Yeah.
guy because, she records in Chicago. She's from Illinois, of
Right.
course. She said,
Right.
he's my guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling you to vote for, but I'm going to be voting for him.
Mm.
I really felt that she boosted him into the stratosphere with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I knew him. I knew he was going to win though in I think I was in 2007 I was in Knoxville and the students had brought out tables and I got a button. You probably saw it on my blog, a Back in Black, the AC/DC. And when I saw that I went, "Oh, damn, maybe this guy's rising. Something's happening." And that was a good year before. I think I was there in the spring of 2007 and I was kind of mind blown. But yeah, I heard about him because he was in the Chicagoland area, right? He's in
Do you
Hyde
think he
Park.
could have made it without Oprah? Do you think he was
Great,
destined for?
great question. I don't know, and I definitely agree with you that I think she donated money to his campaign. She donated $1 million or something. I think that's what she said. I never normally do this. I'm coming out to do it. I believe he's going to
Yeah.
make it. Yeah, she definitely got her women to vote.
Mhm.
Her
I
audience
felt that way.
voted.
I felt that he was her candidate from that point on. All
Yeah.
she had to do was go on the air once and
Hmm.
make one verbal nod towards Obama,
Yeah.
and that clinched it for him.
Yeah.
That was the impression I had. I could be dead
Yeah.
wrong.
Well,
That's
that's another interesting thing. That's probably about the time that she realized she retired a couple of years later, right? But that's probably about the time she realized the power that she had and the potential and that maybe even good karma, you don't want to be forcing that. That's why I think if I was going to guess what she would be doing about the state of affairs, I think she'd be praying on it.
Mhm.
She is a praying woman and she's a believer and she's spiritual. I bet she prays for these crazy politicians that please don't kill us. You know what I mean? Like pray that they get through this and everything's okay, you
Yeah,
know?
that was. She's
Yeah.
not an activist type. Definitely
She
not.
introduced me to Course in Miracles, Marianne Williamson, which, they talked about Marianne Williamson a little bit. They didn't really know what A Course in Miracles was, and I wouldn't have expected the Behind the Bastards to know that. These guys are, political animals. They're anarchists, and some anarchists are spiritual, some aren't. They may be spiritual, but Marianne Williamson, that is one thing that Oprah did do good. That has, we're looking at Dr. Phil, we're thinking about his allegiance, Dr. Oz with Trump and everything, but and she had Jenny McCarthy with the anti-vaccine long before. On the West Coast, I grew up with a lot of people who believed anti-vaccine.
Yeah.
I mean, I was vaccinated. My family was vaccinated, whatever, right? And so that was one thing. But Marianne Williamson is amazing that she was introduced to the world. I know a lot of people that in the 90s, they went and got her Return to Love book and tried to practice A Course in Miracles. It's very difficult. It's kind of like the abundance. It's like the thing like Sam Harris. You actually have to kind of go into it. It's not, you don't just wake up one day and start, it's a
I
very,
have to be honest, I even when she was running for president, I did not know, I don't know very much about Marianne Williamson. I have not read her books.
yeah.
So what if you could kind of boil down her philosophy or her
Well,
worldview, like where is she at, do you think?
yeah, well, basically, I would say there's a book called The Course in Miracles, and it was said to be these psychologists at Harvard one day said, "This is bullshit. There has to be another way to do this." And she started having visions by Jesus. Take it whether you know it or not. It's one of those interesting stories. She was Jewish, but she had visions of Jesus, and she just started transcribe. And then he spoke to her. And she transcribed it, and then
My
they put
God.
it into a book. It's a massive book, and the first 300 pages tell you everything's an illusion. Everything even you and I aren't you and I, Sarah, we're one person. And that there isn't multi humans, there's one consciousness. And I mean, that's Buddhism. I mean, it obviously partly, if she was a psychologist, she would have been exposed to Eastern philosophy. Um, but so basically, if you can get through those pages, you just don't read it. It's like reading Finnegan's Wake. Although I have definitely read page after page, and I tried, but now there's courses online. You can go on a website. I've done a thing where for a year you listen every day. They read a page out of the lesson book. It's made to do that like a lesson a day, and basically this is all an illusion. Everything is love. And even what happened might have happened, even if we think something happened now, it could have happened 10,000 years ago. You're mad at the guy that cut you off in traffic yesterday. There's no such thing as time. That could have been 10,000 years ago. So it really is kind of putting you in the moment. And the idea is to, um, pretty much
So
everything. Pretty much everything's bullshit. How about if I say it that way? For lay listeners, that almost all of our ideas about other people are bullshit, and we're projecting them on ourselves or onto the world. And in Buddhism, one of the first lessons is that if you've got a problem, don't look at the world, look at yourself. So
interesting.
again, not an easy religion.
I have to ask though, does she continue to receive visions or transmissions from
Oh,
Jesus?
Helen Schuckman is long dead. This was in the
Oh,
60s. She was a Harvard
oh,
professor. It wasn't Marianne Williamson that got them. Marianne Williamson went to someone's house, I believe. Her origin story is that she was at someone's house and opened up the first page, and what she read in this paragraph, she was like, "What?" And it just took with her. Yeah. Kind of like Eckhart Tolle. He was very depressed, probably potentially schizophrenic. I don't know. Well, he had a lot of depression. Maybe schizophrenic. I'm speaking out of turn there. I don't know why I even said that. But I think that kind of a level of depression. Does that make sense? And then one day, just on a park bench in Germany, he realized, oh, he went into the moment
Hmm.
and he went right into the now and he stayed there. And so, some people do wake up and become a Buddhist overnight. Maybe
Well,
someone
I
will listen
wonder,
to Sam Harris's app and become, in the moment.
this is a question you would know more about. You might be able to answer this. Do you feel that there was any contradiction in the various systems of philosophy and different beliefs that Oprah brought forward? Do you
That's a
think that they
great
kind of
question. I think that's an amazing question. I think
like
overall, no. Overall, no. Um, some people do say, I mean, I grew up, my mom was really into comparative religion, and some people go, oh, they all are the same. Well, they're not all exactly the same. There's hundreds of religions and hundreds of creation. stories, right? For instance, in Buddhism, we don't have salvation. There's no salvation. Um, there's there's no there's no merit. You don't get rewards for being a good person or anything. Where that's really Christianity has that savior kind of you'll be saved by it. There's no saving. There's peace of mind. That's you won it, you won. You've got peace of mind. That's the goal. Although I would say that probably Christians would feel that was a very similar goal as well. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I've been in interfaith dialogues, and it is quite. People are usually pretty turned off when they hear you don't have salvation, right? And it's like, no. And reincarnation, you could take it literally, or you could take it as a metaphor. I mean, that's really fundamentalism is when you take principles and apply them literally. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. Mythology and poetry and sacred texts are meant to kind of just don't intellectualize them. Look at them, hear them, and,
Yeah, I think Oprah was trying to distill so many of these things into either a quick solution
hmm
to
hmm
everyday problems, or yeah, I just don't know exactly what her goal was. It did seem to be a peace of mind that she wanted people to reach a state where they could be comfortable with where they came from, even if they didn't have all the answers.
Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of where she ended up, right?
It is where she ended up. I would say that she is able to experience being in the moment, and I think she gets a lot of pleasure by it. And it could be by drinking tea sometimes or reading books, but she really does love peace of mind, and she loves talking about spiritual life. So in that way, she's quite endearing, and she's been able to bring a lot of people to other people's attention. Does she boil it all down to an hour? Yes. But most people who watch that program, if you watch um, someone on her show, and like Super Soul Sunday was kind of interesting to watch her evolve into that, where it just was spiritual leaders or people who wrote a book about spirituality. And they were good conversations. I mean, the guys behind the bastards, they didn't like Deepak Chopra, but I don't think there's anything wrong with Deepak Chopra personally. He was at Occupy Wall Street.
See, I don't know enough about him. I did see him, just little clips
Yeah.
of him
Well,
on the show.
he writes it's how when someone writes a science book, they write it for lay people. He writes books for lay people to read about the life of Buddha or different practices. And he just has a talent for writing, you know? It's the same as someone like James Gleick is good at writing about chaos, for example, a topic that is very difficult to talk about, very difficult to understand. Some people have a talent for bringing it to the mainstream. And she found people like that to come on the show and do that. Um, yeah, were they all the same message? Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes.
Just wondering if there would be any contradictions between, say, The Secret and The Course in Miracles, or
Yes, I think there could be. In
yeah.
case there really could be. And I think right now, I mean, you're just really something like practicing, like I say, Buddhism or A Course in Miracles. Um, there are protocols and procedures that you follow in a way. I mean, Course in Miracles is more New Age, and anyone can do it. If you go to Buddhism, you've got to work towards being initiated. It's not just, oh, today there's old-fashioned ancient things that you do, And but everyone can feel in that moment, and you just have to basically like I'm sure people look down on initiation practices. I've been initiated into 4 or 5 different lineages of different things. And I don't see what the difference is. Somebody goes to university and gets a degree. That's a form of initiation. You've been initiated into the life of the mind. You've proved that you can study and read, and aspirants are doing that too.
Mhm.
But yes, so I think Oprah did good by having any philosophical discussion on a daily TV show. Okay, so she had shopping and products, definitely. But when she would pull out once or twice a month these quite challenging philosophical ideas to people who usually you wouldn't be thinking of having that market, housewives, um, you know, desperate. Maybe I think she probably did do good. Interesting that it was a lot of probably they say her audience was mostly white people. I don't know what that means or if that's true, you know. I know she certainly was a bit of a hero in Chicago. I don't think she could probably walk around the city. I never saw her, but I don't think she,
I
would have
always
been.
got the impression that everyone was watching Oprah. And they bring that up on Behind the Bastards that a couple of them joke that they could always tell when Oprah had talked about something, some topical concern about children or something,
Yes, yes.
because their parents, their moms would sit down with them that afternoon and say, "Are you doing this at
Yeah,
school?"
yeah, yeah. I guess that's probably true, right? I mean, I didn't know anybody, really very few people who watched it with me at the same time I did. Most of my friends would mock me. Eugene would be rolling his eyes right now. So, it was a low, it was just, I watched Regis and Kathy Lee too. And
Yeah,
Kelly
it's
and
daytime
Regis.
television, so
Yeah.
it's
It's
never gonna
daytime
have.
television, yeah. And I mean, it's not for, generally, I mean, all my gay friends. They definitely watched Oprah. And the same as Martha
Mhm.
Stewart. Martha Stewart gave and I think maybe Oprah worked the same way. When you've left a small town and you're alienated and you're hungry for family and to make a beautiful dinner with your friends and you didn't feel a connection with your mom, maybe you've been cut off and you want to be a homemaker, Martha Stewart and Oprah are right there for you,
Mhm. That
for
is
years.
true.
And they both their hottest time was during the 80s and 90s when, young gay men we were losing hundreds of men to AIDS and they wanted to be homemakers and have a family and have that community. And definitely you dig out the Martha Stewart cookbook, how to clean the house, how to do all that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think the Behind the Bastards crew kind of came to the same conclusion that, yeah, she fumbled quite a few times and she
Yeah,
did
yeah.
unleash monsters on the world. But
He did.
overall, Oprah's not really, I think they did conclude, didn't they, that she's not really a bastard.
They did conclude that she's not really a bastard, and definitely I laughed a few times. It was a very interesting. In fact, I think it was better than the other shows I've seen their topics. The other topics
Yeah,
were really cool, but they were serious. Oprah was a bit more fun, and
yeah,
maybe
they
I mean,
definitely opened up.
you're not going to really laugh too hard about the East India uh, dominant. What are they called? Colonizers. It was pretty heavy math and in years in history. Oprah's recent. It was more able to do be lighthearted.
Yeah,
Wonder if I have
yeah.
any other notes about the show. Okay, what did you think of Black Bag?
So I enjoyed it very much. It was not at all what I expected. I was expecting a more conventional spy thriller.
I
I
agree.
had not watched the trailer. I just Soderbergh, that sells me, right? I'm very much into Soderbergh, especially his smaller films, not so much like Ocean's 11 and stuff,
Right.
but
Right.
the smaller um projects, his kind of passion projects I'm really
Mhm.
into.
Mhm.
And this was kind of walk the line between a big budget spy thriller and one of his smaller projects.
Oh, you're right. That's so true. I wouldn't have thought of that way, but it still had that avant-garde feel, didn't it?
It did. It was really about the domestic lives and the private lives of spies.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
wasn't really about spycraft. It wasn't so
No, it
much
was.
there is a plot. I mean, don't be scared away. There
Yeah,
is a plot. It's a
there
spy
is.
film.
Mm-hmm.
But um, aside from all the cybersecurity, it was really just about who can I trust?
Yeah,
Um, is
totally.
this person working against me? Are my friends working against me? Are my colleagues secretly plotting to kill me?
Yeah.
Um, just all these crazy, the inner lives of spies. It was so fun.
It was fun, and there was also an element of like the cynicism that some people have towards married couples that might be successful, that actually
Yeah.
care about each other. Because it starts out with Michael Fassbender, who he looks fantastic as a spy. He with those glasses were great. They were so Michael Caine. And
Yes.
yes. And then they say that his name's George. There's a mole in his agency, and he's got marital problems. That is very riffing on Tinker Tailor and John Le
Oh,
Carre.
yeah,
Right,
it is.
George, right? They're
Yep.
just those three things. It's not very much like it, but it was a little bit of fun. It was like a little Easter egg. I was like, George, don't tell me they're going to make him be. So then you find out there's a mole in his company and it could be his wife. And I was like, oh no, this is terrible. And it was really fun finding out, like it was hilarious because, well, Sarah, where were you today? What are you doing this afternoon? Are you going to work? Black bag. So black bag is a code that I'm not talking about it. The
Yes, I
conversation's over.
loved that. I love
Black
that.
bag,
I think all couples should do that, not just spy couples, but we all
totally.
have black.
Oh yeah, Steg and I are gonna black bag. Black bag. For sure. Which is interesting because it's true. Sometimes you need a little bit. Don't I need to have this to myself. It's not secret. It's just something I don't want to talk about and I'm going to do it. Yeah, black bag. I think it's brilliant. It's like Eyes Wide Shut. Every little couple should maybe have a little mystery and a mask in your life. Go to a
Not to that extent, but
not to that
a little.
extent. No, you don't have to go to the cult party, but maybe a little interesting love life. I don't know. And that so yeah, so you watch and all of a sudden you it's a little bit like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt movie, which I loved. Back in the day, it's so sad they're not together anymore. That they sure sold that movie with their
Yeah.
with their affair. That helped the box office, I'm sure.
This
Speaking
one
of
isn't quite as this one isn't as sexy and
no,
as action oriented
no,
as that. It's a
no,
little, it kind of walks the line between comedy and drama.
it
There
does.
are comic moments, but it's black. Like it's quite dark.
Yes. And
And
actually,
not
no, you're right. It's almost when it's over that you realize how funny it was because
yes.
you're in the moment and he's filmed it quite stressfully. And there's a lot
Mhm.
of tension where, there's like in The Sopranos, there's a boat ride out into a lake and there's a gun. Is he going to kill this guy? You don't know. Remember when Paulie goes out in the boat with Tony Soprano thinks they're going to kill him?
Yes.
Yeah, so that happened. And there's a lot of fishing motifs and fish in
Mhm.
this movie. Like the camera's up on the fish. Pierce Brosnan, who's like the big boss of the I don't know what their agency's called. It's not called M.
It's a real one, but I don't
Yeah,
recall the
it's
full name
it's like it's
acronym.
like EOS or something. It's got a funny name.
It's cybersecurity, but I don't
Yeah.
know the
Yeah, the
information.
department name. But Pierce Brosnan, who I love, and he's the boss, and he's eating a fish that's still alive. I mean, so I don't know. This fish motif is kind of funny because I guess Michael Fassbender was out fishing for the mole.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well, it
yeah.
kind of is about fishing. They're fishing through each other's secrets. They're kind of
Hmm.
fishing for information. Um, and they're fishing for something solid, like trust, someone they can
Rough.
rely on.
Yeah,
None of them.
no, it's very strange that every person doesn't trust each other, and everyone does have a secret, actually. As the
They
movie
do.
progresses, everybody has a little bit of a secret. And you get that revealed in a really more humanistic way than a spy, like you said, like action.
Yeah.
It's done in a
What I,
character study.
what I loved about it is that even though all the major characters are spies
Yeah.
and they can all surveil each other and they all have access to the most high-tech equipment, they still don't know one another.
I
They're still
know.
learning about each other. They have to do it the hard way.
Yeah.
There are no shortcuts to human relationships. You
No.
actually have to get to know each other and you actually have to trust one another. And there's no spy equipment in the world that's going to help you figure someone out.
That's so
That's the
well
bottom line.
said. That's so incredibly said. That you said that so well. That is absolutely truth, and that is really the story. Because we can think that we're gonna outwit our coworkers or something, but actually, even with a villain, you just have to spend time with them. You have to talk to them. You have to be right there with them, and you will find out their true character will surface. And it was a lot of fun between he had a thing where he couldn't stand Michael Fassbender, he could not stand lying, and he wanted truth being done, and he was a real stickler, which made him a good spy. But his wife, he would say they'd have this love kind of banter, and would you ever lie to me? And she'd be like, only if I have to. And he accepted that about her. And she seemed to have some fear of poverty, that something happened in her childhood that she was absolutely afraid of not feeling financially secure. So there's a level of financial security demanded in their marriage. And the sad part is that it took $7 million for her to feel that she was secure. We so there's a weird commentary there about they probably had decent paychecks. I mean, their house
Yeah,
was phenomenal and she's worried about being broke.
right.
I mean, that
But that
house that house was incredible, right?
was gorgeous. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. And yeah, again, it was that domestic thing, like, hey, spies have money worries too. Nobody's out of the woods.
Yeah, it's true.
I
It's
love
true.
that.
Yeah.
It really humanized spies. It had
Yes.
such classic spy touches, like you say, Fassbender's his eyeglasses and
Yeah.
his deportment in the film. He was just
Totally.
ramrod straight,
Totally.
poker fade, like you could not penetrate his exterior.
Oh,
But he had all these just ordinary problems that we all
Yeah.
have.
And the
I loved it.
wardrobe was really good. Like Kate Blanchett seemed to have clothes she could just like transform, and they were very slinky. They were like slippery. You couldn't get a hold of her, and her wardrobe kind of reflected that, right?
That's a
Um,
good point. Yeah,
yeah,
she was like an eel all through the
yeah.
movie.
I actually didn't like her at first in the movie. She was really annoying me. And she has annoyed me since she said something about Woody Allen's personal life being, well, that's his business. That's a family affair. And I'm like, yeah, it is a family affair. That's the problem. So she didn't take a stand on it. I mean, she got an Oscar in his movie, The Blue Jasmine, but she's kind of rubbed me the wrong way ever since. And but this time I felt like, and I used to love her before as Elizabeth and everything. She's like the best Bob Dylan ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really kind of fell in love with her again in this movie.
Yeah, she was great.
It
She doesn't
complex.
have much. It really is one of his ensemble movies
Oh,
where nobody is fully, it's like traffic. You're
yes,
not zeroing in too closely on any one character. You
yes.
kind of get to spend time with all of them. So if you really are going to it for Kate Blanchett, you might be a little disappointed.
No,
She's
you're
not
right.
on screen.
Yeah, you're right. So that's part of it. I thought, oh, I'll be fine with her. I should get, Michael Fassbender's in there. That'll be fine. But actually, she was very good at the role. She was perfect. And I kind of warmed up to her again. So I would definitely give it 10 out of 10. Is it a heavy, life-changing, layers of meaning? No. But there's enough in there of mystery. The mystery is, who are we? And how do we know somebody? And it's also gorgeously shot. He does bring some of his avant-gardeness to it. He truly is an amazing filmmaker because he pushes his own limits of experimenting in mainstream stories and brings quirky characters, and it's a low budget movie, right? And so is the movie you recommended, Presence. Those are low budget
Yes,
movies, and that's pretty impressive that he can write and be so free and kind of pull the money together, and he doesn't have to do an Ocean's 11, although Ocean's 11 is a lot of fun.
it is. He's a great old school Hollywood film director. He
Yes,
can
he is.
make just a big, gorgeous, fun, crazy movie like Ocean's 11, but then he can settle down and do these really quiet, low budget, deeply unsettling films. Bubble is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I
I
might watch
really,
that tonight. Yeah. You know,
it was
um, He and
so
he
good.
has he must be a people person. He's with Sex Lies and Videotape, I remember that was his first movie thinking, "Oh my God, this guy really is tapped into people." I felt like I could know him. He was like my peer, and he knew what young people were. He was a young person. And he really has maintained that with his dialogue and characters over the years. So Presence was an incredible movie. And that
It
came out
was.
last year, a year ago. Oh, he may have made both those movies in the same year, I think. I
I
think
think he's on both of them.
I think he filmed them both in one year. I mean, that is mind-blowing.
I know,
He,
right?
he's an animal.
In fact, it's unreal. When you mentioned Black Bag and you said it was Soderbergh, I thought, no, it can't be. I just saw one of his films.
right, right, right. Yeah. No.
Possible.
Yeah. So presence right away. I guess I maybe I knew, well, the title tells you there's a presence, but right away you realize, oh, what's going on? There's a sense of a ghost story. And the whole movie is filmed as if you're in the point of view of the ghost,
Yes.
which is hilarious because it's like the cinematographer, and it was directed by Peter Andrew. I mean, cinematographer Peter Andrew, which is Stephen Soderbergh's father's first names. It's him. He is both
Oh, no
director.
way.
It's just his cover name. It's his
Okay.
moniker, right? He uses
Fun.
his dad's first names, and he's a cinematographer. And there is something he captured that it is kind of a creepy practice that we get a camera, we get everyone to pretend to be a character, and we follow them around and hide because he's in closets. He's going up, because I kept feeling like he was in the movie too,
Yeah,
because
no,
it's
it's
so
true.
much personality.
It really, in a way, and that could have backfired because it could have seemed too much like those POV shots that you get in really, really cheesy B horror movies,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
where you're just
Uh-huh.
following the killer around.
Oh, it
But
could
it
have.
did work.
It did work. It did work. It really was fun. And I got into looking at the ceiling and the walls, and it was a beautiful house. Did you notice how so the family, four people move in, and Julia Fox is the real estate agent. She's just got a little cameo in there. She was the girlfriend in Uncut Gems. So I always kind of
Oh,
watch what she does, and she's like a fashion, a voice of fashion, or she's one of those it girls, right? They always take pictures of her clothes and everything. But she's in it for a little bit, and she sells the house, and the family moves in, and then the mother is cloyingly touching her son, and like, you're my life, and I love you so much, and you're everything to me. And
yes.
does she talk like that to the daughter? No. And
Okay.
I started feeling right away I was suspicious. Now we talked a few minutes before we started recording. We'll aim before that now because you did surprise me with what you said. But so you're watching this, then you're watching the daughter, who was a very good actress. Everybody was really good in the movie. And Lucy Liu was so against anything I've ever seen her do. She's playing a very pedestrian mother in a way. And she's such a phenomenally gorgeous woman, and again, the fashion, the clothes, Kill Bill, Elementary, she's just an outstanding actor. And she went for the housewife, and not a
Yeah.
very nice housewife either, kind of cold and callous.
She, what I was getting from her right from the beginning was boy mom, like
Yeah.
just obsessed with her son and
Yeah.
so eager to like nurture her son and be with her son. She's laughing at terrible things that he's been doing at school.
Hmm.
He and his friends are basically
Hmm.
bullying a girl at school, and she's laughing and encouraging him to tell her more.
Hmm.
You just get a really kind of spooky vibe from her. She's not
Definitely.
someone you
Definitely
want to be.
spooky. Well, and I think that, by the end of the movie we're going to find out why. Because I think you did nail it. So they come into this house and it's beautifully decorated. There's gorgeous colors on the wall. The bedroom is beautiful of the daughter. I was so enchanted by her bedroom. I was like, "Oh, I remember having a bedroom in my parents' house, right?" And mom picking up my laundry. And her mom does give her a hug and cuddle, but there's a kind of a feeling of like, you're kind of a hassle with this depression, because we find out one of her best friends has died of a drug overdose. And she's in mourning, and she starts to believe that her friend is in the house. And that's the ghost that Soderbergh's cinematographer is playing. So the camera itself is a character, and it is the ghost because it starts communicating with people. When, um, oh, I don't even know how to go forward. Can you add to this? Because I'm about to leap to the end. So I don't want to do that. So we go
Okay.
through their lives,
Yeah. Yeah,
and there's a,
we see them in unguarded moments. We see
yeah.
them when you normally wouldn't see them.
Hmm.
So when the mom and the son are sitting alone at the kitchen table and she's saying, I would do anything for you.
Hmm.
You can do no wrong, basically.
Hmm.
We shouldn't really be witnessing that. And yet we're
No.
there in their kitchen because the ghost is there in the kitchen.
Yes, yes.
And when the dad is talking about some financial irregularities that his wife is involved with and how it might come down on him and he might have to separate or even divorce from her to avoid
Hmm.
catastrophe. We're seeing that from one side of his the patio door. It's like
Hmm.
the ghost is kind of lurking almost and
Yeah,
spying on
you're right. The sound was fantastic in the movie too, because
him.
everybody was mic'd just perfectly, because it
Mhm.
depended on incredible sound because of this spy thing. And it did make me think of Bonnard, the painter, who painted women in the bathtubs. And some
Mhm.
people thought it was super sexist. I think it's very honoring women in their private space, right? But it had that weird feeling of voyeurism, like Rear Window, like Hitchcock. I mean, he almost made like a, you're right, because there's a movie, Bunny Lake or something. And no, something movie, it's Veronica Lake, and it's the first movie filmed in point of view with the camera like that, and it's like a joke, right? We saw it in film class one time. It is like a joke, but this works. And he also knows it's funny, because sometimes this ghost knocks drinks off the table. The son has a friend who's comes over, and it's obvious that he's really into his sister, his friend's sister, and they are hooking up. They're sneaking around behind the parents, and it's like, oh my God, are you gonna get pregnant or something? Like, that's suspenseful too. Like, what's gonna happen? You're too young. Don't be sneaking, and it's not super romantic. Even
No.
it's kind of disturbing because the boy goes, "It's all up to you. You're in control." And I'm like, "Why are you talking to her like that?" It does come clear why he is. So the brother is a jerk. He's a complete asshole, and he's going to play tricks on people apparently. But we're getting that from this friend. We're not getting that from Alex, the brother. And basically, within, it's an hour and a half long. It's a little less than an hour and a half, but we kind of go through almost a week of their life and her grieving. And they bring in when the whole family realizes that there's a ghost in the house because they run upstairs to her room and it's like classic poltergeist, drawers opening and closing in the daughter's bedroom, right? It was very also a lot of fun. And also, I kind of laughed because it almost looked kind of fake. It really looked kind of, they had a lot of fun with that. Of like, let's throw all the trophies on the floor and everything. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a little over the top. There is a scene too where the sister is taking a shower or something, and her school books start to stack themselves
Yeah,
and
I was
fall
shocked.
across the room and
I was
set
shocked.
themselves on the surface. Yeah.
But it reminded me of Bell Book and Candles, so it had that cute 60s vibe of like we're gonna have some magic or Bewitched or something, right? So it did have some goofy. So that part I did find super charming. I can't believe he decided to do that. It seems so like he just doesn't care. He's only spending $1 million. He's gonna make the film he wants. He's gonna be entertaining, and that's the Soderbergh I love is the one that's just like I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. And so you're doing that, and then I guess we're gonna blow this plot, right?
You might as well. We've
We
gone
might
this
as well
far.
because you know what? You asked me, and now I realize you're dead right. I'm a complete convert. I believe that this ghost was her friend. And then I think it is a metaphor for movie making. I'm sticking with that there's a metaphor for being a filmmaker and that we put our actors into these bizarre situations and we're actually standing in the room pretending we're not there. Okay? That's fun. But I thought it was her I thought it was her dead friend. What happens is as we go and it also is very important the scene that we saw in the kitchen with the mother holding the son's hands and saying I love you so much and you're so amazing and that she's not like that with her daughter. I'm getting chills down my spine right now because I realize you're dead right what happened here. And what happens so I'll go to the climax where the girl's got her boyfriend coming over to the house. He's drugged the brother to put him to sleep so that he can have sex with her. But he goes upstairs and she goes, you know what? I'm not into this relationship anymore. I don't want to have sex. I don't want to hook up. He goes, well, that's fine. You're in control. Everything's great. But he's poisoned her orange juice. So take it from there.
Well, then it gets pretty dark and it goes
Yeah,
in a direction I did not expect it to go in.
me
It
too.
turns out that this boyfriend, this friend of her brother, is a serial killer.
Yeah.
Killed her friend.
Mm-hmm.
He overdosed her friend, and it was seen as an accident. It was her own fault, and that's why her mother was kind of removing herself from her
Yes.
because hey, your friend screwed up, and that's not our fault. You shouldn't be grieving
Drug
this
addict.
mess that you had, drug addict,
Yeah.
basically. So there's a dismissive attitude around this girl, but it turns out she was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And now the killer has targeted her friend
Mm-hmm.
and is just about to kill her when the brother downstairs, it's kind of unclear what happens, but the ghost moves toward him
Mm-hmm.
and there is some kind of like
Vibration.
disturbance, yeah,
Disturbance. Yeah.
vibration
Yeah.
that he can feel enough to wake him up, get him out of his stupor slightly. So
Mm-hmm.
he's able to stumble up the stairs and find his friend trying to murder his sister.
Mm-hmm.
So he grabs his friend and hurls both of them out of the window. So
Mm-hmm.
he takes himself out with his friend. They both end up dying from the fall.
Mm-hmm.
But his sister is saved, and his parents are able to come home, find her, and piece together what happened, presumably.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But this is where the question of who is the ghost and what's really
Oh,
happening here
no, you're
comes
dead
in.
right. You're dead right. I know who
So
you're absolutely right. So you said your friend saw it and you guys were kind of disagreeing.
we've been going back and forth about it. He insists that it just like you thought that it's the dead friend who is haunting the house. But I started looking at other things like why is the ghost in the house before the family is?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Correct.
he's wandering around in an empty
Right.
house. We
Yeah.
see the POV of him walking up and down the stairs,
And
going into
watching
empty rooms.
the real estate agent.
Exactly. Watching the real estate agent, watching the painters. He
Mm-hmm.
actually messes with the painters, I think. He
Yeah.
scares one of the
Yeah.
painters by like slamming a door or something
Yeah.
and unnerves people. And then when the family moves in, of course, he becomes very close to the family. He's moving the sister's books in a very tender and loving way, which a friend could do, I suppose, but it's more of a brotherly gesture, isn't it?
It's definitely I almost could cry right now because
Yeah.
I am shocked when he goes out the window and you thought he was a jerk, and then I realized, oh, it was his friend who said he was a jerk.
Mm.
And the guy that was about to rape his sister, basically, he was going to rape her and kill her. Like maybe he had necrophilia, I don't know, but he was definitely going to be sexual. And he does confess to doing it twice before because there was two dead girls, Odine, and everyone thinks it's drugs in the neighborhood. So the brother saves her. Then we clip forward where the daughter goes into her bedroom and gets something she forgot in the closet, and I realize the house is empty and it's all gray walls. They're not
Mhm.
beautifully colored walls. Now, you might do that when you're going to go sell a house. You might take away your vibrant colors and make it neutral. And she goes downstairs to her dad and mom, and she says, Mom, I love you. I'm going to go wait outside. And you know that the boy's dead now. It's brilliant
Yeah.
because the mom is very upset and she's in a stupor and she walks back. Oh, we forgot to tell that they bring a psychic into the house. And the psychic goes in and she can feel the energy of this ghost and she looks in the mirror, an antique. She goes, I love antique mirrors. They're more um, typical to be spiritual or to allow you to cross to the other side, right? Something like that. I mean, you don't have to believe in it to understand she believes in it. And she sees something and goes, ah! She actually sees something. Well, at the end, the mother looks in the mirror and sees something, and it's her son. And that you are right. It's her son that was in the house. And I
Fabulous.
don't know what kind of time loop it is, or whether we just had the way he told the story in a very kind of non-linear way now, I realize. Right? But the
Yeah.
whole house is all gray. It's not all the vibrant things. And she sees him in the mirror and they don't. They come running to her, but she screamed because she saw him. And then you go back and you think of that scene of her in the kitchen. It is not normal.
No.
And it's a grieving mother talking to her.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe I'm crying right now. But I can't believe I'm so grateful you recommended this movie because it's absolute. I thought it was better than Black Bag, and Black Bag is 10 out of 10. But I thought this movie was so good because it shouldn't be that good. With the ghost and the camera and the flying books. It shouldn't be, but you go with it.
Yeah, for a ghost story, you wouldn't expect it to be that impactful, but it really is the story of a family and the story
Yes.
of
Of
love
grief.
persistence.
Yeah. And that the mom now, that's why she's so despondent. And she's got to learn to love again and love her daughter and be in the world. And Lucy Liu did a fantastic job. And
Yeah, she's amazing.
that's when you see, wow, what a good job she did. Because I'm like, well, she played a subdued place. No, she was playing two storylines in a way at once. Whereas the other actors were playing one storyline. Lucy Liu had to carry the fact that she knew who the ghost was in a way.
Well, I'm afraid, like most of Soderbergh's smaller, quieter films, this one is probably going to be overlooked in years to come, but I
Yeah.
really hope it isn't. I hope people can see this as kind of a
I'm
classic.
definitely going to tell people, and I hope if you're listening, you will see it. And in a way, even though maybe you've already seen it and we haven't blown it for you, but you can't blow it in a weird way. You can't because I think you're gonna maybe you'll even enjoy it more. I kind of wish I knew the whole plot before I saw it. I might watch it again. I might watch it
Yeah,
again just to see does he show us more. But now I do feel convinced. I did think it was the friend, and now I feel convinced it was the brother. Yeah, and it's so clever,
it is.
so
Yeah,
clever.
he's a brilliant director. And you know what? If he puts out another film this year, I'll see that one too.
Yeah, I know. Two excellent movies in one year. And also, I just feel good after watching them.
I do
The,
too.
the Black Bag, I just felt like I wanted to put on some nice clothes and I wanted to be like walk around and I don't know, spy on my husband.
Black Bag.
Black Bag, Black Bag. No, it's really good. So I would say both of them 10 out of 10. And thank you so much for recommending Presents. Any other
You're most
thoughts?
welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We've covered so much today.
Good.
We've gone through Oprah's entire career.
Yes, we did.
We covered two very good
Two
movies,
very good movies.
probably two of the best I've seen this year so far, I would
Yeah,
say.
I'm gonna go with that too. Definitely. Yeah.
I mean, the year's early, the
Yeah,
year's young,
years
but
early, but that's a good way to start.
it was definitely,
Yeah.
yeah.
All
I'm so
right.
glad he came out of retirement.
Yeah. All right, Special Agent Sarah. Talk to you again soon. Let's come up with some more ideas.
All right, we
All right.
will.
Talk to you later.